Hi. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. It's another show, the Balanced Me Show. And today we have a visit to the Bloom Lounge. I'm always excited each time we have an opportunity to talk, to rub minds, to discuss, and to just look at things that relates to us as humans, as individuals, as men, women, wives, husbands, brothers, sisters, children, because that is what we do here on the Balanced Me Show. We talk about everything that has to do with love, life. Here we learn, we relearn, and we unlearn. It's always a time of insight and learning new things, and also reminding ourselves of those things that we've known even before now. And today we have an amazing guest in the house who will be, we'll be having conversations as we on the topic, the power of love. And I know Ebony is here. She's ready to call upstage our guest for tonight. So please, Ebony, the floor is yours. You're mute.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and thank you for always joining us on the Balance Me show. Yes, Ayo said we have an important guest in our midst, and I am going to be introducing him. Hi, Dr. Dami.
Hello. Hi, Abunga. Hi, Ayo. Good to be here. I hope you can
Yeah,
hear me.
thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Thank you for accepting to do this with us this evening, and I believe we're going to have an amazing time together.
Yes, we will. Yes, we
Ah, I love that answer. Yes, the deep ones we understand. Deep collect deep. Yeah,
will.
guys, thank you. It's going to be an interesting one again this evening. I am going to introduce him. Damilola Adeniyi is a medical doctor and a public health professional with over 12 years of experience working with public, private, and non-profit health-based organizations. He currently serves as program manager for the U.S. Center for Disease Control, CDC, Infection Control African Network, ICAN, Toolkit Project at the Center for Infection Control and Patient Safety, CICAPS. He is an author, a teacher, and lead family life coach at the Family Life Factory, an organization he founded with a mission to raise happy and healthy families through advocacy, coaching, and recreational retreats. He is a certified family life practitioner with the Institute of Family Engineering and Development, and a lover of Christ, who is happily married to Olufumilayo. Their union is blessed with 3 nations. Welcome, Dr. Dami. And I'm sure a number of you will be wondering, a doctor, okay, in family life, okay, what's happening here? You see, that's passion. You can't limit yourself to just one thing. And we keep saying it, wherever you find yourself serving, that's your pulpit, and do it well. Thank you so much, Dr. Dami, for all you do. We see all you do on the social media, and we have been following closely. And we know that you will be able to take us through this power of love. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for having me once
Yeah.
again. Yeah. Thank you for the generous introduction. Yes. So I'm glad to be here.
Before we go into what we have to discuss today, I would like to just read a few quotes. Lately, I'm falling in love with quotes because I find them to be deep. Um, will permit me the use of that word, deep. Oh, deep, go. Okay, so the first one is love is the most powerful force in the world, and amazingly, it's unknown. We don't know the person that came up with that. The second one I would love to say is love is not only something you feel, it is something you do. And this is by David Wilkerson.
Hmm.
The third one is love is the bridge between you and everything. Love is the bridge between you and everything. Rumi. Then the fourth one, that's where I'm going to stop. Love is an untamed force. When we try to control it, it destroys us. When we try to imprison it, it enslaves us. When we try to understand it, it leaves us feeling lost and confused. That was by Paul Coelho. Coelho, that's his name. Well, I'm going to stop with that one. And before the show started, I was having a conversation with Dr. Dami, and I was telling him, sorry, that three things I never used to do really were living, loving, and laughing. And tonight we're looking at the power of love. From your own understanding, when you hear that, what comes to your mind? The power of love. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? What comes to your mind when you hear that? The power of love. There's a song playing in my head. It has been playing in my head since morning. Yes, what comes to your mind, Doctor?
Well, so the final quote you mentioned when you talked about when you're trying to understand it, how sometimes it leaves you a bit more confused, was the way I felt initially when I heard the subject, the power of love, because love is a subject that is probably the most talked about, yet the most misunderstood subject. Um, and I think one of the reasons why it is the most talked about is because every human being is wired with a deep sense of need to be loved. There is just something about love that we all desire. We are wired to be loved and to be loved and to love. I believe that that's what separates the human race from every other creature, from every other creation of God. The capacity, to truly love. And so when we say the capacity to truly love, you ask me what comes to mind when I think about love. Many things come to mind. I think about how, secure and how happy I genuinely am because I know I'm loved. And I usually like to start from there because when you talk about the power of love, I'm one of those people that believe that you can't give love if you have not truly received it. You can't truly begin to express. There's no such thing as love unexpressed. When you understand love, when you receive love, you will, by
Express.
extension, express it. You will pass it on. And so when we see a lot of darkness, we hear a lot of evil, in the world generally, it is usually a result of something that people have internalized. A lot of people that act in ways that are unbecoming, and sometimes you do not understand, and you think, how can somebody do this to another human being, or how could somebody do this to other people? Many times they are victims in themselves. That's the honest truth. I'm a student of history to an extent, and also, going to the family systems engineering, certification. It also opened me up to begin to study a number of people like Joseph Stalin, like Hitler, you know, different people that have influenced the human race, whether you believe for evil or for good, depending on what side of the divide you belong to. And when I think of somebody like Joseph Stalin, for example, studying him, I realized that This was a man that was deprived of love, honestly. Deprived of love from a very tender age, from a very young age. And you can also extrapolate that from Hitler. And when we look at the other side of the divide, those that have influenced the world in a good and a positive way, they were deeply loved. They experienced love either from their parents or from somebody that went out of their way to show that I'm committed to your good. All right. I am, regardless of your flaws, all right, I'll be by your side. And then, of course, the concept of marriage also comes into being, because marriage is a very strong platform to express love. Not the only platform, but a very strong platform to give and to receive love. And so when we see people that have shaped the course of humanity, they are people that have either done it from a standpoint of being deprived of love, and so that translates to them acting in terrible ways that have influenced so many people, or people that have experienced genuine love and by extension were able to pass it on. So love, I believe that love is the greatest force on earth. Even the Bible speaks about the fact that three things remain: faith, hope, and love. The greatest remains love. And so love is the greatest force. I honestly believe that love is a force on earth. I believe that there's no such thing as love unexpressed. I believe that you may not be able to explain love in English, French, Spanish, whatever language you speak, Mandarin, whatever. But when you experience love, you know it. And it's an experience, it's a feeling, but it's beyond a feeling. When you experience it, when you're on the receiving end of love, there is something that it does to you that leaves an indelible mark and puts you in a position where you can actually, do the same for others. I believe that love is what actually created everything that we see: a
Absolutely.
desire to give, a desire to share, a commitment to the ultimate good of another person, which I believe is the best definition of love. Love is one of those things that is difficult to define, but I believe one of the simplest definitions I've come to embrace is that love is a commitment to another person's ultimate good, regardless of what the circumstances are. And then we can begin to break it down into the various components. But in a nutshell, that's what I think when I hear the word love.
No. Wow, thank you so much. I was able to pen down a few things. You said if you're truly loved, you will pass it on. You mentioned that
Yeah.
if I'm truly loved, I can't keep it. I'll definitely pass it on. And you also mentioned that you cannot give what you don't have. So if I don't have love, it's difficult for me to show, the other party or the other person love. And
Yeah.
you mentioning Joseph Stalin today is amazing because I read about him again today,
Oh, wow.
and I was like, he went through a lot. I think it was smallpox that he had, and he had a mangled hand as well,
Yeah.
and having to go through all he went through, low self-esteem and all. You can imagine him growing up and all that he was exposed to. So really, when we hear people's story, we will be able to extend grace to them and know that they did the best they could with what they had at that point in time. And if they're exposed to some other things, most likely they would have done better. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that, to the fore this evening. Ebon, do you have anything to add to what we've started talking about?
Oh, yeah, yeah, I do. I thank you so much, Dr. Dami, for that perspective from the angle with which you had come in, and it just got me thinking. Why is it that people don't have this kind of understanding about love? Love has been defined to us in different ways. And it seemed to me that what a lot of people call love is not what love is. Because if you say you love somebody, so you said you can't give what you don't have. So it means everybody, almost everybody, don't even know what love is. And if the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. That's why we're having all these problems we have around. Bringing it down to the marital, where you know what you said when you were talking about the love in relationship.
Yeah.
in marriage, you said, is the highest place to express and show. And that is where we have a lot of problems. What do you think is the problem in that angle? I really don't understand, because if we all think from this angle with which you had defined love, you have talked about love, I believe we won't be having a lot of problems like we do have. I also understand that the part that, okay, maybe our upbringing and all, but why is it that we are not tapping into our depth to really express? Because I want to believe there is that need. You know when you want to show love, you know when you love somebody, and you know when you don't really love, and you know that you're not expressing love. Even when you're about to show it, you know. So what's holding us back? What's that thing
Yes.
holding us back?
So I agree with you that expressing love is something that people find difficult, and then when you look at the marriage, within the marriage context, it seems like that's even the place where love is mostly abused. This concept of love, I think it still boils down to some fundamental facts, one of which I mentioned earlier, which is that you can't give what you have not received. And so I feel that people do not by themselves genuinely understand what it means to be loved by themselves. Because if you enter into a relationship with someone, and so I'm not just even limiting this to marriage, but I'm still even talking about relationships, because we are relational beings.
Yes.
God designed us to be relational. Human beings are relational. Anyone that is in isolation or stays in isolation, of course, we all need me time. We all need personal times of reflection and meditation. But ultimately, our sense of meaning comes when we relate with other people. And that's where the real meaning of humanity really comes in what we do for others. But the truth is that a lot of people that get into relationships or get into marriage do so by default. And so when I say by default, they do so by default in the sense that they feel, oh, I'm at a point in my life where I think I should be in a relationship. I'm at a point in my life where I think, oh, my biological clock is ticking. And sometimes um, my friends, we like to joke and we say, please, if you feel that that clock is putting you under pressure, please throw that clock away. All right, and don't try to measure your life with other people and try to measure what you should accomplish by other people's seasons. So people sometimes get into relationships or ultimately the marriage relationship when they are not prepared. And so when I say they are not prepared, they don't know what it means to be loved. And one of the ways to know, if you one of the ways you can know whether you have experienced love is when you love yourself. Let me say that again. One of the ways that you will know whether you have experienced love, and we experience love in different ways. All right, in our relationship with God, we can apprehend His love, but God has not limited our apprehension of love to just our relationship with Him. If it was limited to that, then we would not have the privilege of relating with others. And so we have the family system, for example. Going back to Joseph Stalin, one of the major reasons why Joseph Stalin turned out the way he turned out was because the people that were meant to love him were the ones that disappointed him the most. His father, the way his father treated him, unfortunately, his father was, a drunkard, and would have fits of rage, beat the mother, beat him, went through all kinds of things. And then, of course, his mom, tried as much as she could. And then he got to a place where he had to live in something that looked like a monastery, which it was a religious home. And in that place, he experienced even more abuse. And so you have people that have gone through those cycles. And so there are institutions that God has put in place that should be expressions of love. So when people go through those institutions and they do not receive love, what happens is that they find it difficult to actually love themselves. They begin to wonder, maybe something is wrong with me. Maybe I'm unlovable. And so if you do not love yourself, how do you expect to develop capacity to love another? There was a course I put together sometime last year called On Stock for single people. It was around Valentine's Day, and of course, I'd worked with married couples and everything. I'd be thinking, what can I do for single people and everything? Because I was also once single, and so when I say single, I mean unmarried. And so I put On Stock together as a webinar, which we had something last year, and then recently, we made some adjustment and put out a course. And one of the things on Stock Live, one of the things that I put in On Stock is the fact that as a single person, if you are going to explore, I hope you can still hear me, Ayo. Can you still hear me? Okay, great. As a single person, if you're going to fully explore the liberties of what it means to be single, which is a prerequisite for being happily married, you have to genuinely love yourself. You have to be happy about who you are. And so it's not just something you just walk up. It is something that happens when you're on the receiving end of true and genuine love, which happens through relationships, in your life. We can come from the family unit. And that's why I believe that God is very, very big on family. I'm one of those people that believe that many people turn out, a lot of people, except if they make a major decision to ensure that their minds are re-engineered, all right, or they go through a major mind makeover, like you were sharing with me that you had to go through a major mind makeover. Most times we gravitate in the direction of the kind of upbringing we have had, the kind of experiences, especially significant emotional experience, and love as an emotional component. We tend to gravitate in that direction. So when people do not experience what it means to be loved, when people do not see true models of love, and end up in relationships where it is expected for them to express love, it becomes a problem. And so if they do not love themselves, how can they love another person? And so some people that end up abusing another person, or treating other people in ways that are unimaginable, the truth is some of them were on the receiving end of the same thing. And they just find themselves in a position where they just reproduce. It's like they repeat that cycle. And so I believe one of the reasons why we have a lot of loveless relationships. And so when I say loveless, it's not just limited to romance. And I believe that romance is an integral part of love. All right. When we come to marriage, and I believe we'll come to that, because I believe this is the balanced issue. I believe that there is a balanced perspective that you should have towards love. I believe that love has three major components, all right, based on what I've studied. It was what's his name now? A psychologist from Yale, Robert Sternberg, that's his name, that did some studies on the subject of love. And he came up with some deductions, which I felt were, brilliant and helped me to even understand it a lot more. He calls it the triangular model of love. And he believes that love has a passionate component, an intimacy component, and a commitment component, which is why he said the triangle of love. And so the triangle has three sides. If you are going to experience what we call consummate love, there is the passionate component, there is the emotional component, which is intimacy, so passion, intimacy, and then there is commitment. And every single aspect is important. You have to understand, or you have to build a system that feeds both the passionate, the intimacy, and the commitment angle, especially within the context of relationships and marriage. And so if we see people that are in loveless marriages or in loveless relationships, or find it difficult to really express love, like I said, there's no such thing as love unexpressed. Love is not a passive thing. It's not possible. Love is active. Somebody went as far as saying that love is not just an emotion but a decision. It is actually an action word. God so loved, so he gave. So God proved his love by what he gave. So it's the same thing. When we love people genuinely, we would act in certain ways. If we act in ways that are not consistent with love, it means that we do not truly understand what it means to be loved. And so people sometimes tend to act this way because they have not really experienced what it means to be loved. They've not been on the receiving end of love.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Dami. I'll take you back to the triangle. What did you call it again?
The triangle of love.
The triangle of love. You mentioned the passionate angle, the intimacy angle, and the commitment. If it happens to be just love between a friend and another one, how can we apply this triangle of love where we have the passion, the intimacy, and the commitment? How can we apply this? Because this looks like a triangle for those who are in maybe a marriage
A
relationship or
romantic relationship.
a
Yes.
romantic relationship. Yes.
Yes. So
So how can
so
we
let
apply this? Yeah.
so let me backtrack a bit. I
Okay.
believe that as human beings, God has given us capacity to receive love in these three ways, and also to
Okay.
express love in these three ways. Now, there are opportunities to express. So, for example, passionate love, which sometimes is called the biological aspect of love, is basically linked to hormones, is the sensual and the sexual aspect. Sexual desire, characteristics, and the aspect that is often emphasized during Valentine's Day and all of those things didn't come from a strange place. We were created with it. And so it is not by accident, it is by design. And so I believe that, and which is why I said marriage actually is possibly the highest platform that allows you to,
To
to
express.
express and to experience consummate love. Now, the passionate aspect of love is very strong, very, very strong. The sensual aspect is very strong, but it's inadequate of itself. And that's
Okay.
the reason why sometimes, of course, I'm a professional counselor, and sometimes we hear people say things like, I'm not sure I love my wife anymore, or I'm not sure, I love my husband anymore. But when they were dating, they loved each other. What a lot of them are saying is that they have lost the means of fueling the passionate aspect. A lot of them, not all of them, fueling the passionate aspect of their love. Because that aspect of love by itself is not long lasting, it waxes and it wanes. And so I believe that as human beings, the passionate aspect or the sensual aspect of love is so strong. And of course, when you connect that with sex and all of that, it's so strong that there is a wisdom around the marriage institution that confines, the expression of that. Because there is a danger with you, expressing the passionate aspect of love across board. Right? There are conundrums that come with that in aspect of your soul. I don't want to go, deeply into that. So what I'm saying is this: the passionate aspect, for example, is the sensual aspect. Now, the intimacy aspect, which is more of the emotional aspect, is the part that involves you getting to really know a person, and all of them can be intertwined. And so you don't have to be in a marriage relationship to actually experience intimacy, because intimacy by itself is not just sex. Really, intimacy is that desire to know a person as much as you are known, or desire to want to be known as much as you know a person. And in spite of knowing that person or the other person knowing you, you are still still accepted. It is that sense, that desire to be accepted by another person. And so the emotional aspect on the intimacy aspect of love is one that creates a balance. It's actually what allows even the passionate aspect of love to be sustained on the long term. And so what it means is that you want to be able to, that's where, having conversations with people, spending time with them, getting to know what their dreams are. It is that aspect of love that requires vulnerability from both parties. And it is that aspect of love that you can experience as a child or as a parent. It can occur between friends, getting to know someone, wanting to open up. I believe that every human being has a desire, to really, you want people to really know you, and you want to know people. And so that's the intimacy aspect, which is the emotional aspect of love. All right. So, and of course, intimacy, fills our heart's deepest longings for closeness. You want to be close to someone. People say things like, oh, I have special friends, I have close friends. That is linked to desire, to the desire for intimacy. And so intimacy is not just limited to marriage relationships. Marriage can take intimacy to another level. But it is important, and this is where I'm going to. When we're talking about the power of love, you have to be a balanced person. You have to, you can't just be about just, my marriage. All right, because your marriage can give you all the aspects, the three different triangles of love actually, but there is also a need for you to have people that you can connect with, people that you have a sense of belonging with, and you can together accomplish things that are beyond you. And then we come to the commitment aspect of love, which many times when people think about marriage, that is all they think about, especially in religious circles. Commitment aspect is the cognitive aspect of love, or the willful aspect of love, where you say, regardless of what you do, regardless of how you act, I would love you. It is kind of love that says that I am committed, to your good for the long term. But that in itself is not enough. Yes, somebody says, wow, profound. Yes, I agree, it's profound. That that in itself is not enough. Because If that was enough, then God will not put in us a desire to express passionate love or the sensual aspect, or God will not put in us a desire to know someone. And so I believe that the three aspects of love, the intimacy aspect, the commitment aspect, and the passionate aspect, I believe that the aspect that probably holds every other thing together, just my own thoughts, is the intimacy aspect. Because when you get intimacy right, it is possible to sustain the passionate aspect of love longer. And then it fuels your ability to commit to a person. There are couples that have been married, and because they have strong convictions, they are committed to each other, they can have a rocky relationship. But what happens is that when people experience just the commitment aspect of love, what happens is that at some point it becomes boring. At some point it becomes just a duty. And so that's where we have the other aspects of love. They work together, they foil each other. And so there are things you can do as a person that would foil the different aspects of love. And so as human beings, other people are important. I absolutely believe the fact that you take human beings away from the earth, there is no value on earth. And that's the honest truth. What makes the earth valuable? It's not oil, it's not gold, it's not all the resources, it's the people. And when we say the people, together with their flaws, because humanity has flaws. And so when you know that regardless of what flaws I might have, I am accepted by this person, I'm accepted by this group of people, it's a feeling that fuels you and gives you strength to live, to move to the next day. And so we have to find a way to ensure that we establish healthy relationships that not only ensure that we're receiving love consistently, but also we are giving daily doses of love. I know I've said a lot, but I hope it makes sense.
We have. Yes, indeed. Ebo, let me give you the opportunity.
Yeah, Dr. Dami, that was amazing. I have been studying and paying attention to this word love for a while now, because I told myself I need to understand it well. I know that a lot of errors have been sold to us, right? And you have brought these. I've never heard anything of this triangle of love, the passionate, intimacy, and commitment. And it's kind of giving me a kind of understanding now from your last statement, saying that even though you're saying to you, intimacy is like the force pulling the passion and commitment and holding it together. I quite agree with that. Intimacy, at the intimacy level, you're able to define the kind of love.
I think her network is season.
Yes, I think so. There's
Much
some
of,
interruptions. Okay, I think she's back.
yeah.
Okay. Evan, we are losing you.
Can you hear us, everyone?
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm
Okay, I
back
think
now.
it's.
Sorry about that.
Oh, good.
My
Good
Okay.
to
network.
have you back. Good to have you back.
Hi,
Network
Evan.
is fluctuating. So did you get that question?
We did not. We didn't get anything you said. Oh, so sad. How I wish I can get into her mind. Evan, we didn't get you at
So
all.
can
No.
you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you. Can you
Yes.
hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear me? Yes, that's accurate. we can hear you. We can hear that part now.
Okay, so my question is, can we say that the intimacy helps you define and separate or know when you have a romantic love for someone and another person? For example, as a female, I have a spouse, I am romantically connected to a guy that's my husband, and I
Yeah.
also have a relationship with another guy that we are close. So can we say it's at the intimacy level we're able to separate that?
at.
Okay, so I think I heard, I think I heard most of your question. So I feel that when I said that the intimacy is actually what holds them together, I'm speaking in the context of a married relationship. That what happens. So let me just try and put a number of combinations. What people talk about, some people talk about romance. They say, oh, they want more romance in their marriage relationship. I'll come to platonic relationships now, but let's look at the marriage relationships. They say, oh, I want, a bit more romance and everything. Or they feel like, oh, this person, there's a way he makes me feel, or there's a way she makes me feel, which sometimes, typically happens at the beginning of relationships or even beginning of marriage. What usually that points to is the fact that there there is passion involved, and that's where your hormones come in. That's where the sensual aspect comes in and all of that. And so that by itself is the passionate aspect. It is not bad, it's not a bad thing. There is a need for it to be controlled. All right, there is a need for it to be channeled in the right way. And so sometimes you have people that feel passionately, or feel some form of passionate connection to some other person, even though they have not known them for a long time. Where there is a difference is that intimacy takes time. You cannot claim to be truly intimate. The fact that you had a fling with someone doesn't mean you are intimate with them. That's just a result of passionate desire, and that in itself can be dangerous, really. And so intimacy actually happens over time. The passionate aspect is a lot about hormones and a lot of biology and all those things, and those things that has its place. Intimacy is where the investment usually comes in. So let me give an example. A couple can, or let me give a real life example. A couple that has been married for 15 months, all right, a year and 3 months. And of course, they were dating and all of that. They got married. And, gradually it seemed like the passion, seems to, started waning and all of that. And, it looked like all of a sudden, does it look like I'm falling out of love, from this guy, with this guy and all of that. Now, if they don't understand the commitment aspect of love,
Mm.
and that is what you have, a lot of marriages in a day and time. They feel, oh, we no longer love each other. We decide to go our separate ways. I can assure you, if you make decisions based on that, you will have to go through it to be multiple trauma, because you will be with another person, and the passionate aspect is not designed to last forever. So when I say last forever, it waxes and it wanes. It waxes and it wanes. And so when I say intimacy is like that bridge, that bridging gap, it is something that happens over time that requires vulnerability. It means that you open up about yourself. It means that you are able to communicate, and so that's where communication comes in. That's where things like love language come in. You are able to communicate your desires, communicate your feelings, your aspirations with another person, and in return the person is able to reciprocate. And then you are able to engage in activities, and then you begin to see shared interests and all those things. That is what happens sometimes when people, and this can be unfortunate, when people are married and then they find that they begin to spend time, for example, at work, and it means their work has ensured that they have to spend time with some other person that they genuinely respect and they genuinely like, and because they begin to spend so much time with that person, all of a sudden intimacy begins to build. And the truth is that intimacy is a strong thing. When you share, when you feel, and that's what people call an emotional connection, it's powerful. Sometimes people try to, make, and again, in religious circles, we try to make it feel like, emotions are a bad thing. No, we have to learn how to channel emotions in the direction of our will. And the direction of our will is the commitment aspect of love, the cognitive and the willful aspect. So that in itself, that's a separate component, which is important. And so why are healthy boundaries important, for example, in marriage? Why is it important that when you're married that you limit how much time you would spend with somebody that you're not married to? Because if you don't put that limitation, you can begin to develop intimacy, an
Indeed.
emotional connection with that person, and ultimately
Absolutely.
it can translate into the passionate aspect. And then somebody says, oh, they have gone against their marriage vows. And so that's why I said The bulk of the work in marriage, that's one of the reasons why I believe in couples retreats. And I organize couples retreats because I believe, and there's no couples retreat I've organized in every single year. We always talk about intimacy. We do intimacy exercises. There are exercises you can do to develop intimacy. Because I find that hormonally, biologically, as long as the course of life goes on, as long as you become a teenager, you become a youth, the hormones will flow. It's just a natural order. But where people are deficit is that they don't know how to develop intimacy. Of course, the commitment aspect, a lot of about your beliefs, a lot about your convictions will help you develop the will, a sense of conviction and strong will to say that I've given this person my word is my bond, I'm going to be committed to this person. And so your values come in that aspect. But many times where there is a gap is in the area of intimacy, where people do not know what they need to do to develop emotional connections. And so that's what I mean when I say that, intimacy, I believe that intimacy is actually what bridges, the gap to ensure that there is consummate love in a marriage relationship. But outside of a marriage relationship, I also feel that intimacy has a role because that's what friendships are about. Friendships are about commitment to the good of some other person. But friendship is also about intimacy, doing things together with your friends, having memories. And I believe that it's important that human beings have friends. You said something earlier one way, gisting before we started. You talked about how I don't want to go into some of the details, but you talked about how you had a lifestyle that was not balanced. And so you had a tilt towards something, and everything about you was just about something. And then you began to discover that there was more to you. And then you began to open up to people, and then you began to establish other relationships. That is how to experience, consummate love. And by the way, not everybody will be married. Let's also put it there. But the fact that you're not married doesn't mean that you can't live a fulfilling life. So your fulfilling life is not limited to whether you're married or not. And so that's where relationships come in. That's where being vulnerable comes in. That's where understanding how to connect with people, how to make friends, how to have conversations, how to go out of your way for the sake of another person, even though you are not their husband, even though you are not their wife, even though you are not their parents. That is the beauty of humanity, our ability to use whatever resources we have, to make the life of somebody else better, to go out of our way to put a smile on their face. That is equally a strong expression of love as much as you have in a marriage relationship. Let me stop. I don't want to just go on and on, so that if there are other things you want us to talk about, we can go on. But I believe
Oh,
strongly
you
that
you're
I believe
really on
strongly that
point.
in marriage relationships, the intimacy aspect is where we have a huge gap for many people. And when
Yeah.
people learn how to develop intimacy, they have a more rounded, love life as couples.
And that's where I want to take you up, Dr. Dami. How
Oh,
do you develop intimacy? I was waiting for you to land, so that you can give us some tips on how to practically develop intimacy in relationships,
in relationship.
especially we see a lot of husband not where the wife is, husband in Nigeria, wife in
Mm,
Australia,
mm.
husband in the UK, wife in Canada. We see a lot of that, in play now. So, what can we do practically to ensure that, yes, even though we are not physically together in the same place, we can still ensure that we develop that intimacy that will carry us on, before we come together for physical intimacy.
Great. So I think that's a brilliant question. So that I don't forget, let me just quickly say for those of us that are watching, I have a book on marital intimacy. It's called Rekindle. It's a mini book. You can read it in 30 minutes.
Okay.
Rekindle. All right. A
Kindle,
guide.
how can we
Rekindle.
get it?
My handle at Family Life Doctor Instagram. It's free. Just go Family Life Doctor. Click on the link on my bio. You'd see Rekindle. A guide to marital intimacy. The focus is on marital intimacy, even though intimacy is not limited to marriages. All right. So I think I should just put that out of the way. There is no substitute for intimacy beyond spending time. You can't get around intimacy outside of spending time together. Now, it's now about what you do with the time. Now, time is the most important currency of life. Some people think it's money, but that's not true. Because as you get older, you realize that what really matters is time, because our life is an aggregation of time. And so we exchange our time to learn. We exchange our time, we get an education, you do a course so that you are able to add value to some other person, so that they pay you money in return. And ultimately, the money that they pay you in return is so that you can be healthy, so that you can be happy, so that you can, enjoy the things of life, so that you live long. So ultimately, it's all a circle of time. Time is the most important currency in life. And all of us have been given time. We all have 24 hours within a day. All right. By God's grace, we have a lifetime, which is God's gift to us. Now, if you're going to develop intimacy, first from a marital angle, it is about what you do together with your spouse within the frame of time. And so you convert time, which is a resource that God has given all of us, into intimacy. What do you do with your time? And so by developing intimacy, what do? You want to, for example, work together, find ways to do things together with your spouse. Now, this is important. I'll just start from there. When I say to do things together, it doesn't have to be, because there was a time when people, their marriages revolved around their work. And so you had farmers. I'm talking about the days of agrarian economy and all of that. You had farmers, and the husband goes into the wild, he tries to hunt, or he goes to the farm, and then his wife could farm with him. Everybody did some form of business, which was like a family business. So they tended to spend time together. And so it was easy for them to become intimate, because they had time together, they could laugh, they could joke, and all of that. But the world has changed now. And the example you gave is that you could have two people that live in on the two sides, two sides of of the globe. Somebody is in the east, or somebody else is on the west. Now, that's where you can leverage technology. There is no substitute for time that you spend together. Even though I believe that there's still limitations with long distance relationship, I am quite old school when it comes to that aspect. I believe that it is best and healthy for couples to be in the same time zone, because I don't believe there's a substitute for it. As my personal thoughts, you may think I'm wrong, but I honestly believe that. And even if you have to be apart, there should be a plan for the both of you to be together, because you cannot, and you can't enjoy the full extent of sexual intimacy if you are not together, regardless of whatever type of sex you're trying to practice via via technology. It's not the same, and that's the honest truth. So finding things that you can do together with your spouse. And many times, people are pursuing their careers, trying to get better on the job, running different businesses. I am one of those people that, when I counsel couples, I try to encourage them to have or create an aspect of a business or something that they can do together outside of their career. They have to create, because there's no substitute for it, they have to find ways to put in their energies together to accomplish something that would ensure that they are doing stuff together. And even if it's not starting another line of business, it can mean working together to be better couples as they go on a coaching course. All right. So, for example, last year I signed up for a coaching course, and what that did was that it helped my wife and I have more conversations around things that we had not been talking about. All right. So we're thinking, okay, so what is the perceptual code for our kids? What's our communication style? You have to do things together. So finding ways to work together, that's one. Two, I'm just trying to simplify it.
Yeah.
Finding ways to play together. There is no substitute for play. I am a great advocate for playing. And I was speaking recently at an event, and I talked about how when we are created, when we are born, nobody teaches us how to play. It just comes naturally, because God designed us to be playful beings. Now, some people will be more playful than others, but as we grow up, life happens, and sometimes we lose our sense of how to play. One of the best ways to develop intimacy with your spouse is find ways to play with your spouse. And so when I say play, don't have to wait until it's time for sex to play. No, find ways to play. And that is where having getaways, come in. That is where, going on a couples retreat, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Expensive is relative. It depends on your perception of, what value you're getting in return. And so if you can't, afford to travel to Singapore or to, Maldives, whatever, you can decide, to go to a resort, and you put work aside, just 24 hours. And all the both of you are doing is play. You can decide, and part of play is that you can decide, we're going to swim together. If you don't know how to swim, I want to learn how to swim. And that brings me to another thing. One of the best ways to develop intimacy is to learn a new skill with your spouse. Learn a new skill with your spouse. It can mean learning gardening, it can mean learning how to swim, it can mean learning a new language. There is something about and this is a bit of neuroscience now. There's something about how neurons form in our brains when we are learning something. And sometimes it can be even just, by reading a book, if you are able to read a book with your spouse. When you connect your desire or your need to learn a new concept or a new skill together with your spouse being present, doing the same thing at the same time in the same space, it helps you to develop bonds. That is the reason why a lot of people met their spouses when they were in school, because in school they spent a lot of time together, and in school it was an atmosphere where they needed to learn, so it was easy to build intimacy, to build emotional bonds with other people. Some people ended up marrying their reading partners, or they ended up, marrying that person that they were in a book club together, or they were in one, subgroup together. And so I've mentioned three things, broadly. Number one, learn to do things together. So do things together is broad in the sense that you can decide, I want to do a project with my spouse. All right, we want to build this. We're going to do it together, rather than doing my own thing and she's doing her own thing. Because for most people in their careers, they are doing their own thing. And for people that have businesses where their partner is on the business with them, even though you may fight sometimes, because sometimes personal relationships will mix with work relationships, it's a blessing because it's an opportunity to develop intimacy. So work together. Very important. Play together. Play is powerful. Of the three, I believe the last two are the most powerful. When you play, there's something about when you're enjoying yourself, when you genuinely enjoy yourself and you share that moment with another person. This is why some people, unfortunately, end up being unfaithful to their spouses, not because they set out to do so from the word go, but because they created an environment that moved them in that direction. And so the smart thing is create that environment around your spouse. Play with your spouse. All right. Do ridiculous things to your spouse. I can't begin to tell you some of the ridiculous things I do with my wife. All right, because it's not anybody's business. But play. It helps us to develop intimacy. And then learn a new skill, with your spouse. Those are the things that can help develop intimacy. Let me extend this because I know this is just not limited to married relationships. The same principles apply when it comes to friendships, when it comes to platonic relationships. And sometimes platonic relationships become romantic relationships. And those are the kind of relationships that are usually the strongest when you are first friends before you become, romantically involved with them, before you get married and all of that. It's the same thing. You have to make out time, which is the reason why I am concerned about people that, do jobs, sometimes jobs that they do not like, but they just have to do it because sometimes you have to do it because you have to earn a living. Yes. And, life is in phases, men are in sizes. But people that do that for a long time and that takes up all their time, remember, the true value of life is in time. And so it takes up all your time and you don't have an opportunity to meet people. You don't have opportunity to play. You don't have opportunity, to spend time to create memories. Before you know it, your life is up and you just have regrets, looking back. And so, even as a single person, searching person, looking for love, whatever, you have to be able to make out time, to invest in the things we have said, because it's the same principles of developing intimacy, whether in marriage or outside of marriage.
Yeah. You said something very profound, you mentioned the fact that we need to create memories,
Yeah.
and that has to be intentional. You've got to be able to create memories, choose to cook together,
Oh,
go
yeah.
out together, take shower together, make fun of yourself together. Now I'm talking about those who are in a romantic relationship now. And
Yeah.
even when it comes to other relationships, like this afternoon, I went on a date with my girlfriend, a friend of
Nice.
mine, just on a lunch date, just to just catch up and just gist and just have conversations, just over lunch. So it's important that we intentionally do that with our children. There was
Mm,
even a day myself and my son, so he took me out on a date, you know, learning to treat a lady right.
mm,
Very important. Going
beautiful.
out with our daughters as well, just to watch a movie. These are
Mm,
memories that can't be taken away from us. They are ours, and those are the things that we're going to relish for a long time.
for a long
I
time.
was actually sharing with my friend that we went out this afternoon that when we create this memories intentionally, there are times you'll be looking at some pictures, you're smiling, and people around you are wondering why are you
Wondering.
smiling, and you're like, oh, you don't want to know the story behind this picture, and you are able to, bring back the memory, relive the memory, and continue to just relish and enjoy life in general. So yes, we've spoken so much tonight. Unfortunately, Ebon's network is really misbehaving, and that's why she's out of here. You've
Mm.
said a lot, and we've been able to glean quite a lot from you. I know you've mentioned about the retreats that you organize and the other programs that you have. Can you just say a little bit about that so that people can take advantage of what you do apart from being a medical practitioner?
Thank you so much. Because it means a lot that you would allow me to use this platform. So if you go on my Family Life Doctor handle, you'd see, it's clearly stated when I started Family Life Factory about 2 years ago. The mission is to help, people build healthy and happy homes through three main things: advocacy, um, recreations, all right, and coaching. Advocacy, coaching, and recreation. And what happens during couples retreats? So I usually organize couples retreats about twice a year. The last one we had in Abuja, December last year. I've had a number in Lagos. This year, we have plans to take it, outside, even outside of Nigeria. We'll still have, within Nigeria, and it's basically an opportunity to fuse recreation, relaxation, and coaching. And so what happens is that when I have coaching calls with clients or professional counseling sessions, there are things, there are tools that I use to, help them or guide them to achieve whatever their goals are. And it can be marriage related, within the spectrum of family life, it can be even as singles. So what I do during the retreats, which are usually over a period of a day to 2 days. So the more time you have, the better. We leverage, exotic, beautiful locations, and there's something about going outside of what you're used to as a couple, going out of your house, going to a place that just being there inspires you. Just being there helps you to relax. There is a difference between when you are in an urban, mega city like Lagos, where I am speaking from currently, and when you go to the interlands or you go to the outskirts, where what you just see are beautiful trees, beachside. There's just something about nature that is so beautiful. Just being in such an environment. So we use such, luxury locations.
The way it was in Eden.
The way it was, exactly the way it was in Eden. Just being there before we even start whatever activities we're doing, already you can begin to experience healing. And when I say healing, emotionally, as a couple, it's an enabling environment, for many things to happen. And so it helps you to relax. The location is very key for relaxation. And so we select exotic, emphasis on exotic and luxury. So most times it's an investment, which is why it's not every time, it's twice a year. You have to plan towards it. For a lot of people, they have to plan towards it because of the financial demands. And so we have the location, and then we have the activities, which is the secret sauce, really. The activities that we do, intimacy exercises are just, some of them. There's something we call the retreat pledge. And so just like you exchange marital vows, at the beginning of the retreat, we usually start by exchanging a pledge. And part of the pledge is that we do away with our phones. And so
Wow.
everybody submits their phone. There's no such thing as you're picking calls and all of that. You give your spouse absolute attention. Of course, the meals happen to be a lovely part. Then the activities, we can decide to do quad biking, we decide to do whatever it is, go karting, depending on where we use. All of that together just helps. Everything is geared towards developing intimacy. All right. You're able to give quality time. You're able to speak the love language of your spouse, and in return, that language is spoken to you. And so that's, basically what the retreats are about. A mixture of using exotic, luxury locations together with the tools for coaching, and then of course there's always personal time as well. Meals are also a major part. There's something about the opening of the hearts and having very excellent meals as well. And so our meals are also something to look forward to. And I look forward to having anyone that is on the call. Just you can just watch my space. We'll put information about typically middle of the year and then end of the year. Those are the times we usually have
Have it.
couples retreats. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dami. So please, if you're here, you can go on their Instagram handle at Family Life Doctor, at Family Life Doctor, and you can have access to the links on his bio, even for the book the free book, Rekindle. Yes. Am I correct? Is it Rekindle?
Yes, rekindle. Yes,
Rekindle, yes.
rekindle. A guide to
Okay.
marital intimacy.
A
Yeah.
guide, yes. So please do yourself a favor by going there to download the free um, the free book. Thank you so much, Dr. Dami, for spending the last 1 hour plus with us on this show. It's been instructive. It's been um, inspiring, it's been revealing, it's been a time of learning for all of us who have, joined tonight. I would really say thank you so very much for choosing to share with us all that you know. And like you said, the retreats happen twice a year, and you can always, be a part of it at the end of the year and the middle of the year. I'm sure if you follow them on Family Life, at Family Life Doctor on Instagram, you will be able to get all the necessary information as at, you know, as at when due. Once again, thank you so much. Our regards to your lovely
Thank you
wife
very
and
much for
three
having me.
nations. Thank you. And thank you so
Thank
much, our
you. Thank you for
audience
having
tonight,
me.
for being a part of our show tonight. We really, 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 really appreciate you. Until we come your way again next time, we say have a good time. God bless.
Bye, everyone.